Part 67. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 662. Sir, 2 foreign women came to the medical center today to give birth. Oh, got it? One is a level 5 soldier who is 6 months pregnant. He is willing to pay for hospitalization out of pocket, but he cannot afford the cost of a cesarean section. He is asking for credit. He is willing to work in a medical center to pay off his debt after giving birth. The fork in Gretel's hand stopped. After thinking about it, he started to turn his wrist again and roll the noodles dipped in sauce onto his fork. Answer while scrolling. Check her identity and background to see if there are any obstacles. If not, you can start working now. Anyway, the medical center does not have high-level female security guards. Well, in the VIP building, we can't just rely on skeleton soldiers and spellcasters to provide protection, we still need to have physical combat effectiveness. Or, ask Bernard to write a letter back and recruit a few female barbarian warriors. Carlos finished taking notes and then reported on the situation of the black-haired female warrior. Gretel was eating and listening. After hearing the report, he used a fork to pry off a piece of muscle meat and put it into his mouth. I understand this. Arrange a quiet room for her, away from other women who are giving birth, and try to keep them as little in contact as possible. Instruct everyone at the medical center to keep their mouths shut, take good care of her, and do regular check UPS. Just foreigners. When publishing the paper and rushing to create the magic device for painless childbirth, it was already hinted at. We need to spread the news to the other side of the strait, we need to sell things there, and we need to win over the lords, nobles and powerful people on the mainland as much as possible. Yes. Carlos hesitated, then nodded. After thinking about it, I couldn't help but ask. Sir, does this really matter? What if the Parliament inquires about her identity and accuses us of collaborating with the enemy? Such high-level female warriors cannot be raised just anywhere. Especially if they come from foreign countries, if it is not done well, they are all spies on the other side of the strait. Broadly speaking, they are all spies. Gretel smiled with crooked eyes. He swallowed a mouthful of delicious and chewy shrimp meat, looked past Carlos, looked at the distant hometown that he could never return to, and repeated what the big boss said. Carlos, you have to understand a question. Who are our friends? Who are our enemies? Carlos closed his mouth, thoughtful. Greet picked up another large shrimp, bit off the tail in one bite, and chewed twice. Local nobles can be won over. No one likes a church that always hangs over them, deposing kings and excommunicating churches at every turn. Even some members of the Glory Holy See may not be impossible to win over. Didn't they themselves create the glorious Holy See to the west and the country to the east? As for wanting to do more and seize the opportunity, it is not impossible. Just like in previous lives, it was very reasonable to initiate the religious reform and create Protestantism. Well, there are always some devout people who can't stand the luxurious and absurd life of the church's top leaders, and want to promote cleanliness, simplicity, justification by faith and so on. Carlos thought for a moment, took a long breath, and nodded seriously. Since, sir, you know what you are talking about, there is no need to say more. Anyway, Mr. has a wide range of people, so you can mention it to the Lord of Thunder, the judging panel, or any other big shot. When the sky falls, a tall man will hold it up. But some details still need to be paid attention to. Carlos thought for a while and continued to ask for instructions. So, let her stay in the medical center? Will any secrets be revealed? How many high-end wards are there left now? 2 rooms, Sir Carlos replied smoothly. According to your order, 5 rooms are provided for pregnant women who have paid full payment, and they live in rotation. These 5 rooms will occasionally be vacant. 2 rooms are provided for the families of the extraordinary people who are going to fight this time. They cannot be moved. If Ms. Anna occupies 1 room for a long time, and now there are 2 left. 2 rooms are okay. Greed was satisfied. Even if another rich man comes and takes over 1 room, there will still be 1 room left. If there are too many rich people, can we only ask them to go to the baby-friendly medical clinic or the spring water temple? Place her in the ward on the 3rd floor. The other room is empty, so try to keep her away from others. Anyway, there are only 2 wards on the 3rd floor, both of which are suites and have the largest area. Arranging distinguished guests here, no one can say anything. As for staying in the hospital for a long time, what will happen? Anyway, the people who moved in were all mothers who were in labor, and they were already in terrible pain. Be careful and separate people, don't believe she can hear things she shouldn't. Well, since that level 5 female warrior is a transcendent, as long as there is no problem with her identity, we can arrange to go there. There is no need to let her stay in the ward, just free up a nurse's room or something. Tell her to be careful, especially that person. Ms. Anna. Yes. Ms. Anna did not do anything strange as Carlos feared. She just stayed in her room quietly, occasionally chatting with the nurses who came to work and the spellcasters who came to examine her. Her interests were also focused on medical aspects. How many people give birth here every day? Who delivers the babies? Oh, are they all midwives? Specially trained by the medical center. How many people have given birth here so far? Has anything happened to the mother? Has anything happened to the baby? Is it really possible to give birth without pain? Can you take me to see it? Really, I'm a little scared. These bits and pieces of questions were passed from the nurse's mouth to the ears of little Jenny, the foreman, and then to Greet's desk through little Jenny. And now, they have arrived in front of the jury member, old Sam from Thunderhorn. Ah, I know that girl. Old Sam laughed nonchalantly. Lena Eugen, the daughter of the Duke of Saxony, the Prince of the North, the confidant of Veronica the Flower of Frost, and the staff officer in her army, nicknamed Wise Lena. She greeted us before coming. But I didn't say it was for this reason. The old man held his chin and looked Greet up and down with a sly look in his eyes. She will come here quietly. It seems that our news is correct. Golden Lion really wants to choose a husband for his daughter, how about sending you there? Speaking of which, your personality is indeed very suitable. Your Majesty the Archmage. Greet's face darkened. Old Sam smiled and shook his hands. Okay, okay. If I really send you there, that little silver dragon will pull out my beard. In short, the council is aware of this matter. You can receive her safely and let her live in peace after you give birth to the child, it will be none of your business. Greet returned satisfied. He is happiest when he leaves people in the hospital and slowly undergoes examinations and so on. Originally, pregnancy tests should be done every week. It's just that everyone in this world is poor. Being able to go to the hospital to give birth is already emptying your pockets. Do you want regular prenatal check UPS? No matter the money, time, or the content of the pregnancy test, it has not been developed anyway. At least he has to do big and small crotch deformities, and wear tang-sieving sheep or something. Even if someone pays for it, there is nothing Greet can do. Nowadays, there are some people who are willing to stay in hospital for a long time at their own expense and have weekly check UPS. If you catch such a pregnant woman, you will be caught one after another. What's more, he's still a level 7 warrior. It is not easy to collect the physical data of level 7 warriors. Nowadays, it is rare for a pregnant woman to collect it for you for free, no, at your own expense, so be sure to seize the opportunity. Gretel's abacus clicked. A level 7 soldier takes care of her from 7.5 months to delivery, a level 5 soldier takes care of her from 6 months to delivery. Well, it would be best to have a spellcaster who stays in the hospital regularly and has regular prenatal check UPS, and that's it. The caster arrived soon. Greet returned to Oak Grove Hospital and walked around the outpatient building and obstetrics building before arriving at the VIP building. As soon as I climbed up to the third floor, I saw 4 women standing opposite each other, and the atmosphere was a bit tense. Fox Lena. Why are you here? Haha, aren't you here too? I said, didn't you go to the royal capital? Why, your queen doesn't want you anymore and sent you back. You. The last voice sounded vaguely familiar. Gretel took 2 steps up, and when he poked his head, he saw that the slender and tall figure was indeed familiar to him. Selena. Mage Nordmark, the female knight turned to him slightly and her eyes lit up. Long time no see, you're back. Ahem, I'm back. Greet quickened his pace, walked between them, and glanced left and right, giving him a headache. Selena blocked a pregnant woman behind her and stared at Ms. Anna warily. The pregnant woman's body had faintly floating magic power, as if she could throw out spells at any time. Ms. Anna smiled slightly and hid her palms behind her back, as if she was holding something. Whether it's a knife, a button, or anything else, in the hands of a level 7 female warrior, it can be extremely lethal. The level 5 female soldier admitted to the hospital, Melissa Hempery and little Jenny stood nervously between the 2 sides, with their arms spread out. Looking at that body language, it seems that he is ready to shout at any moment. Stop fighting dash. Ahem, Melissa, you can go and rest. Greet sent away the irrelevant ones first. Just kidding, this is his patient, nothing can happen to the patient. Little Jenny, please accompany Ms. Anna back to the room to rest. He then gave the order to his head nurse, and at the same time held onto the endless ink pen, preparing to trigger the force field barrier anytime and anywhere. The pregnant woman behind Selena raised her eyebrows slightly, but said nothing or made any further movements. Ms. Anna, or rather, Ms. Lena Eugen, her eyes moved, she smiled slightly, and pulled little Jenny back to her room. Gretel watched the door close, breathed a sigh of relief, and turned to the female knight. Long time no see. Is this your friend? Are you coming to the medical center to wait for delivery? Yes. Selena took the initiative to push open the door of another ward on the 3rd floor and help the pregnant female magician go in. After making her sit down, she stared at the next door intently, and then turned to Gretel. Ellen is my new friend. I heard about the Oak Grove Medical Clinic and was going to come here to wait for delivery. I didn't know that you opened this place. Why did you leave such a person behind? I didn't know that she was from the kingdom of Rhine. Someone. This, that, Gretel told him. Oh my God, please don't get into a fight with these people. If they really get up, only Cyrilla can suppress it. On Valentine's Day night, the single author will add more updates. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 663. It's a pity that Cyrilla is not here. Miss Yinlong is currently taking a nap in the Star Dome on the top floor of the Babel Tower, no, working, and is having a great time. Without absolute suppression by force, there is no absolute right to speak. At this moment, Greed misses the Mage Tower especially. There is a Mage Tower to control the situation. Basically, within the control area, it is completely impossible for such a bad thing to happen. Fight, fight, whoever dares to fight, or even make a loud noise, the Mage Tower will directly suppress you. However, neither does the Mage Tower. In order to save his hospital from a vicious incident in which maternal family members and mothers fight each other, collapse the hospital wards, causing death and injuries, Greed can only use his brains and try his best to shake his lips and talk. Oh, I run this medical clinic. The purpose is to relieve everyone's pain. If someone is pregnant and comes to ask for help, we treat them equally here. Are you really not afraid that she has ulterior motives? Selina glanced in the direction of the next room, half smiling. As a level 7 knight and noble lord, she has also been on the battlefield, patrolled the coastline, and fought hard with the soldiers under the glorious Holy See. At this moment, seeing the warriors of the Rhine Kingdom, it is inevitable that there will be a bit of a stress reaction. Who is more than 7 months pregnant and comes here with ulterior motives? Greet waved his hand nonchalantly. Without waiting for the other party to refute, he had already turned his back and asked. Tell me about you, how have you been during this time? And this friend of yours, whom you haven't introduced yet. Selina hesitated to speak, but in the end she just smiled and began to introduce. Only then did Greet know that more than a year ago, she carried her sword and traveled to the New World to break through herself. After coming back, he became the Queen's bodyguard again. I'm very annoyed at home, and I'm constantly being urged to get married. She couldn't help but vomit a few words of bitterness before she smiled. One good thing about being in the Queen's Guard is that it can fend off many suitors. When you encounter someone who is not suitable, you can hint that protecting the Queen requires absolute loyalty, and most people will retreat obediently. Then if he is still stalking you, you can say that he has an ulterior motive and wants to harm the Queen through you, right? Gretel couldn't help laughing. Although he doesn't follow the warrior route, he has heard a few words. The age of 20 to 30 is the golden period for rapid advancement of a warrior's level. After becoming a knight, it can even be extended to 35 years old, or even over 40 years old, until the physical strength enters the stage of imminent decline. However, the pregnancy and childbirth of female warriors will almost certainly interrupt this ascension process. Pregnancy and childbirth will almost wipe out the accumulation of physical strength and blood. It often takes several years of recovery and exercise to accumulate enough strength for an advancement. Therefore, female warriors who have requirements for themselves will generally not marry early and have children unless they reach a bottleneck period. And joining the Queen's Guard is a good way to avoid blind dates, as long as the Queen herself doesn't help pull the strings. Well, as long as the Queen doesn't lose her mind, she probably won't force herself to be a matchmaker for her personal guard, a level 8 female knight. What about your friend? Ah, Cecilia is from the royal capital, a member of the royal mage group, and a level 4 mage. Selina raised her palm and pointed to the petite, fair-faced woman sitting quietly next to her. She said she saw the recent Magic and Arcana and saw the situation at the Oak Grove Medical Clinic, so she asked me to accompany her. I didn't even read the paper. Only when I got here did I know that you opened the medical clinic. By the way, can I live here together and take care of Cecilia? Miss, you are still so caring about the female friends around you. Gretel couldn't help but think about the time when they first met, when she took her best friend, the girl named Iris, to avoid being hunted by Archmage Tolga. Is this happening again? But the state has national laws, and families have family rules. Wrong, hospitals have hospital rules. Although it is not like the hospital in the previous life, where only one accompanying family member is allowed, a nucleic acid report must be submitted, and they cannot come in and out at will after being accompanied, but there are still requirements. Of course you can. The rooms here in the small building are big enough for escorts and pregnant women to live together. You can stay with her safely and tell me if you need anything. When I'm not here, you can also find that little Jenny just now. She is a nurse. Long. Selina agreed wholeheartedly. Greet warned again worriedly. Don't provoke the person opposite. Of course, I won't let her bully you. As the owner of the medical clinic, I need to ensure the safety of every patient and family member. Okay. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble. Gretel said goodbye and left, turning to work. I sat in the outpatient department for an hour, saw 2 patients, and performed 2 cesarean sections. When I came out, I happened to see Selina walking back and forth in the corridor of the obstetrics building, pacing. Selina? What's wrong with you? Is something wrong? Ah, I just want to see. The female knight paused, her ears turning a little red under the illumination of the eternal flame. Cecilia is a little worried. She hopes to confirm that the birth is not painful and that during the examination, she will be treated in a manner consistent with her status. Gretel started to want to rub his temples. Generally speaking, it is not recommended for pregnant women to see the birth scene directly, as they will be really frightened. As for being treated appropriately, the conscience of heaven and earth, what is considered consistent with identity? There are more than 1 or 2 female magicians here for examinations, delivery, and I don't see anyone bothering to be treated in a manner consistent with their status. Everyone is a spellcaster, the spellcaster checks the spellcaster, and the spellcaster performs the surgery for the spellcaster. What kind of treatment is considered to be consistent with the status? Greet simply asked. The female knight hesitated to speak. After thinking about it, she answered bluntly. Well, Cecilia is a noble, and her father is a marquis, although it is only a palace title of the Royal Mage Corps. Therefore, I also have a mission to accompany her, to ensure that she can be treated politely and in line with the status of a noble. This is more difficult. Nevis is a city of mages, not a city of nobles. Gretel himself knew nothing about aristocratic etiquette. So how should noble status be treated specially? He tried to use his imagination. The nurse curtsies to the mother before approaching, and the security guard bows. Male healers do not touch the mother's body unless necessary. Or do women want wallpaper and tapestries in the wards and carpets in the delivery rooms? This and that are definitely impossible. When decorating the ward, we must first make it easy to disinfect. That's not the case. Selina smiled and waved her hands. I just hope that the examination and delivery will not be too rude, causing her pain, or degrading her dignity. Cecilia told me that when she saw some midwives, she would, The red color at the base of her ears stained her cheeks, a thin layer, probably due to some operations that she was too embarrassed to talk about. Gretel thought for a moment and shook his head slightly. To be honest, we have tried our best to train the therapists and midwives in their movements, and try our best not to make the mother feel uncomfortable. But some postures and movements are just so uncomfortable, and there is nothing I can do about it. For example, the lithotomy position and so on, such as checking how many fingers of the cervix are open, sometimes there is really nothing that can be done. If you really feel pain and loss of dignity over this, that's all. If you get angry and want to complain or file a lawsuit. He suddenly became excited. By the way, you said before that you work in the Queen's Guard. Is the Queen married? Of course Her Majesty the Queen is married. Selina looked at him strangely, with a look in her eyes. Why don't you know about such a big thing? After thinking about it, I felt that the magician had always been immersed in research, so maybe he really didn't know. Well, we got married last year, not long after I left Nevis and traveled to the New World. I just confirmed my pregnancy 2 months ago. By next year, the kingdom should have an heir. So he's another front runner? That Anna, or rather Lady Anna, was working for the Duke of Saxony in the Kingdom of Rhine, or to be more precise, for the Duke of Saxony's daughter, Miss Veronica, the Flower of Frost. Maybe this female magician, Lady Cecilia, is working for the Queen? This front station is quite luxurious. Come and experience it yourself, but also come and watch from the sidelines. Gretel didn't want to guess any more, nor did he want to reveal anything. He simply noted cautiously. The physical fitness of extraordinary people is still a little different from ordinary people. Of course, the physical fitness of magicians is still much worse than that of warriors, but it is also much better than ordinary people. We know this. Selina raised her eyebrows and smiled. She glanced around the corridor and heard the high and low moans suddenly disappearing, replaced by relaxed breathing. She couldn't help but smile a little wider. Did the pain suddenly stop? What I heard before was correct. Oak Grove Hospital does have painless delivery methods. As long as there is the protection of this spell, the suffering during childbirth has been reduced by more than half. I know that almost everyone in aristocratic families knows that. Even girls who can't afford the hardship of practicing martial arts will work hard to become a spellcaster. At least, being a trainee priest or something can let the holy power nourish the body. As he spoke, he turned slightly sideways, past a stretcher that was being carried over, and walked side by side with Gretel. Turning the corner, seeing no one on either side, he lowered his voice. Even Her Majesty the Queen is a level 1 priest of the Fountain Goddess. That time when the Church of Glory invaded and supported the false king to usurp the throne, Her Majesty the Queen also had the protection of the Fountain Goddess, so she was able to turn the crisis into good. Understand. There is no essential difference in physique between a level 1 priest and a level 4 magician, neither has passed the level 5 mark anyway and has not experienced any essential improvement. Greet pretended not to hear, smiled, and raised his hand in the corridor. Anyway, you are also a woman. As long as the mother agrees, you can go in and take a look at the examination room and so on. Well, it is best not to enter the delivery room casually, and you cannot enter the operating room. Thank you very much. Happy Lantern Festival to everyone. Happy reunion, eat more glutinous rice balls. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 664. Whether it was standing up for the princess or the queen, Gretel didn't care at all. Anyway, he won't be kidnapped to the Rhine kingdom. As for asking him to go to the royal capital or something, that would have to be discussed with the council and the teacher would have to nod. Besides, no one wants him to leave Nevis, Oak Grove Hospital and Mage Tower. Well, work hard to do clinical and scientific research, and work hard to publish papers. This is the most important thing. When he has accumulated a thick stack of papers and published a book obstetrics and gynecology, he will naturally become the biggest boss in this field, and no one can ignore his voice. In view of this, Greet immersed himself in the hospital, working on both operations and papers. Of course, with the world's understanding of caesarean section surgery, he couldn't help but stay in the operating room and keep an eye on every operation. Snapped. A semi-illusory, gleaming, yet solid hemostat suddenly appeared and struck the necromancer's wrist. Accompanied by Gretel's roar. The transverse incision is not for you to cut a horizontal line. It is a shallow arc. A shallow arc. Forget it, get off the stage, go back and cut 100 rubber balloons, and then think about the surgery. The radial styloid process of the right hand turned red instantly. The necromancer who performed the surgery did not dare to say a word, bowed his head and retreated, rolling to the edge of the operating room and standing next to the wall. The next necromancer quickly takes over. The knife was passed through quickly and effectively, and then a knife was cut into the subcutaneous fat, and a small incision was made in the fascia on both sides of the midline. Next, the second chief surgeon took the blunt-tipped curved scissors from the instrument nurse, strictly speaking, the instrument skeleton, and began to cut the fascia. Snapped. The transparent hemostats are empty and then tapped. Greet continued to scold. Put the tip of the scissors up. Curl up. How many times have I told you not to listen? There is so much muscle tissue down there, and you want to poke a few holes in the flesh with the tip of the scissors. Make another mistake, and you will do 100 dissections. The rabbit comes again. The second necromancer shook his palm, and the radial styloid process of his right hand turned red, exactly the same. I have to say, this area really hurts when tapped. It won't break the skin or bleed, but it really hurts. He clicked, made a few cuts on the fascia, and continued to cut away the subcutaneous fat. As soon as his hand moved, the transparent hemostatic forceps flew up into the air, and there was another sound. Who asked you to cut the fat layer? Pull it apart. Pull it apart. The fat layer is torn off, so it is not easy to damage the nerves and blood vessels. Forget it, step down and replace. Therefore, demand is the best driving force for research and development. Greed had been operating on his own for so long, but he still hadn't developed any new magic. After only a few days of teaching his students, he had already perfected the level 0 trick hemostat radial styloid tap technique. Opposite the operating table, a group of young necromancers remained silent. It is said that they are already very skilled in dissecting dogs and rabbits, and they have dissected countless corpses, more than 3 per person. As a result, following Greet on the operating table, a lot of problems can be picked out at any time. 5 people changed, and the wrists were tapped about 10 times. In the end, it was Joanna who took matters into her own hands and completed the operation under Gretel's guidance. Fortunately, the mother was under spinal anesthesia and hypnosis, so she didn't know anything during the whole process. Otherwise, seeing Gretel roaring, changing people, roaring again, and changing people again, I would be so scared that I would jump off the operating table. Well, so this is the advantage of spells. In a previous life, spinal anesthesia was spinal anesthesia, and the patient remained conscious. Unless you are transferred to general anesthesia, the surgeon or instructor will never dare to curse like this. Instead of worrying about students, we should also worry about the feelings of patients. After an operation was completed, several young necromancers rolled out of the operating room like eggplants beaten by frost. Joanna watched the nurses take the mother off the stage and asked worriedly, "Did you scold them too harshly? After all, they have just started." "It's because I just got started and I have some bad habits, so I have to correct them quickly." There were no outsiders around, and Gretel did not pretend to be angry, and sighed longly. It is easier to start breaking off a sapling when it is a sapling than to break it off when it grows into a towering tree. I corrected their points. Each one of them will cause harm to the patient if they are done wrong. This is the case in medical care. In this industry, the error tolerance rate is very, very low, almost zero. If a car breaks down, it can be replaced, and if a house falls down, it can be rebuilt, but what about people? There is no resurrection after death. Even if it is just a wrong cut or even delaying the condition, people will suffer unnecessary pain. That's okay. Joanna thought about it and could only agree. Moreover, she really has no say in the training of surgeons. Not to mention those necromancers, even if her progress was 2 months faster, she could only perform surgery under Gretel's guidance. God knows how long it will be before I become an independent surgeon. Gretel, how long will it take me to study before I can return to Heartland City? What? Are you homesick? Greet stood under the running water, scrubbing his arms. Hearing the female pastor's question, he paused slightly and turned to look over. It's early. First of all, you need to be able to perform surgeries independently and be relatively proficient in them. Then you will increase the amount of surgeries. If you are lucky, you will see all the common complications. Greet raised his head slightly and estimated the total training time from intern to residency in his previous life. And, how much risk can be offset by the magic of this world, and how much tolerance does the world have for surgical death? It will take at least 1 year, right? At the fastest 1 year, I can barely practice independently. However, if you want to know the why of each operation and be able to teach your disciples, I'm afraid it will take even longer. It takes so long. Joanna was a little frustrated. She wants to go back as soon as possible, spread the technology of cesarean section as soon as possible, and benefit the people in her hometown as soon as possible. But during this time, she had seen many unheard of techniques. She knew that she knew too little, so she could only settle down and learn. But while studying, I still occasionally mutter. Are there really that many complications? It takes half a year, no, a year or so, to encounter all the common ones. Uncommon ones, maybe untouchable? Will the complications be so dangerous that even treatment can't bring them back, or they don't know how to deal with them? Obviously, in the past 2 months, she had performed nearly 100 operations with Greet, and they had all been performed smoothly, and there had never been any problems. However, complications come soon. On this day, Joanna stood in front of the operating table as usual, incising the abdomen, cutting the fascia, separating the muscles, and cutting the peritoneum. There is a necromancer standing on the left and right. The mage's hands are flying, helping to pull the hook. She has become much more proficient, and does not need to hypnotize the mother, nor does Gretel keep an eye on her. Greet was sitting on a round stool in the corner, his eyes straight, as if he was wandering in a trance. There are 2 light screens in front of you, one on the left and one on the right, beating constantly. Joanna knew that one was an electrocardiogram and the other was blood oxygen monitoring. As long as the information on the 2 light screens is normal, it means everything is fine and the operation can proceed as usual. From this point of view, Gretel didn't even say a word or do a thing. As long as he kept an eye on these 2 light screens, his role in the operation was irreplaceable. Joanna looked away and continued working. After incising the peritoneum and exposing the uterus, and just as he was about to gently incise the myometrium, the mother suddenly began to writhe on the bed. Joanna glanced sideways and saw the mother raising her hand to press her chest, trying to breathe, and making a hiccup sound in her throat. He even turned his head to the side, as if he wanted to vomit. "Don't move. Don't move." Joanna panicked. When the mother moved like this, her scalpel almost went astray. Damn it! The uterine wall is so thin that it is almost transparent. If the blade is tilted, it can cut directly into the fetus. "Don't move," she shouted to the mother. As he shouted, he pointed his hand, and a large vine grew densely on the edge of the wooden operating table, tying the mother up and down. While tying up people, he gave orders to the 2 necromancers. "Control her." Yes. 4 mage hands flew out together. In the midst of her busy schedule, Joanna quickly started thinking. What's wrong? What happened? Why does the mother suddenly feel uncomfortable? Why do you feel like vomiting? Is it the negative impact of divine magic, or is it because I feel nervous about having a knife scratched on my body, or... While thinking about it, he looked towards the 2 light screens. On the electrocardiogram screen, the curves went up and down, and on the blood oxygen monitoring screen, the bright red seemed to dim a little, but it didn't seem to dim. In short, I couldn't give her any hints. Before she could think of a reason, Gretel jumped up in the corner of the operating room. "Don't move. Turn on the oxygen concentrator. Give her oxygen. Quick." As he spoke, he rushed over and raised his hand to pat the mother's waist. A dim yellow light flashed, and touch of exhaustion muscle relaxation version took action, and the mother immediately lost all strength and collapsed on the bed. When your muscles are relaxed, you naturally don't have the strength to struggle, right? A necromancer panicked, ran to turn on the oxygen concentrator, and pressed the oxygen mask on the mother's face. Greet flew his hands, performed inspiration technique, opened intravenous access, and infused Ringer's solution, doing several things in succession in an instant. While still busy ordering. "Bring the pillow from the corner. Put it under her right hip. Let her lean to the left. Lean to the left. Lean 15 degrees. Quick. Another necromancer also went to work in a hurry. Fortunately, the mage's hands flew very quickly. As soon as he turned around and pointed his hand, 2 pillows were immediately brought over. Joanna let go of the vine and lifted the mother up at an angle. The necromancer quickly stuffed a pillow down, then another. Then, Joanna watched the mother's face gradually soften from pale and frightened, and the urge to vomit also subsided. Gretel stared at the screen, quickly took the mother's blood pressure with her hand, and took a long breath. Okay, it's okay. The blood pressure is back. Joanna, you have to remember that postpartum women often have low blood pressure when lying on their backs, and may experience symptoms such as chest tightness, tightness of breath, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting. Let her lie 15 degrees to the left. Stay, give her oxygen and infusion, she will be better. Damn it. Luckily he saw her during her obstetrics rotation. Fortunately, he saw the symptoms and the drop in heartbeat and made an accurate judgment. The magic of real-time blood pressure measurement must be invented quickly. It's so troublesome to always rely on a mercury sphygmomanometer or an invasive sphygmomanometer. The author saw the full moon and ate glutinous rice balls. How are the readers doing? Happy Lantern Festival to everyone. I regularly ask for subscriptions, monthly tickets, recommendation votes, book reviews, and all kinds of things. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 665. Blood pressure monitor, blood pressure monitor, blood pressure monitor. Gretel frowned. He can only know how to use most of the magic, or to be precise, most of the magic that is not used for medical treatment. As for what the principle is, how to modify it, how to change it, I have no idea. For example, using the mage's hands to transform into hemostatic forceps, toothed forceps, toothless forceps, retractors, and even delivery forceps, he can do it effortlessly, with precise changes and perfect force control. However, other magics in the force field branch of the plasticity system, such as how the floating disk increases its load-bearing capacity with the level of the mage, how the force field palm controls the strength, and achieves a series of functions such as tripping, grabbing, pushing away, whipping, and even interfering with spell casting. Sorry, no. So now, if he wants to make a magic blood pressure monitor, Gretel's first idea is to replace the cuff and airbag with a force field. But how to get sound with the stethoscope? How can the magician in charge of monitoring pinpoint the time when the sound accompanying the heartbeat suddenly weakens or disappears to determine diastolic blood pressure? Or go one step further, let the magic itself determine this time period and display the corresponding blood pressure value? Ah! Greet held his head. He really doesn't understand. He has a specialization in surgery. He is an emergency doctor. He is not a big shot in the field of medical devices. Whether it's a blood pressure monitor or a vital sign monitor, he only knows how to use it, but he doesn't know how to make it. Mr. Norwood Oro. 2 heads emerged from the laboratory. A transformation magician and a plasticity magician gathered around Gretel and listened to his gestures. I want to build something like this. Magic instead of a cuff? Instead of a bladder. Mr. Norwood immediately began to calculate. The daily job of magicians in the transformation department is to help everyone solve problems and turn the goals dreamed up by other magicians into reality. Most other magicians would jump at the various possible, impossible, and unbelievable demands put forward by customers, and they have long been used to it. After thinking for a moment, he spread out the manuscript paper and began to calculate. How is the cuff constructed? How to build an airbag? Or simply don't use force field constraints and just use wind magic. What is the range of pressure and pressure reduction, the sound of the heartbeat, the sound of blood flowing in the blood vessels, and which magic configuration should be spliced? Contrary to his actions, Aurora did not immediately start thinking about the magic configuration. The young plastic magician was still confused. Why do we need to build an airbag? Why do we need a cuff? Since we are measuring blood pressure, wouldn't it be better to directly measure the blood vessel pressure? Gretel was confused. To be honest, he is not a medical device professional, let alone the history of medical devices, and has no idea why the blood pressure monitor is made like this. Now when asked, he can only deduce from the principle. Maybe, it's not convenient to measure blood vessel pressure directly. After all, it's separated by skin, muscles, and maybe several layers of clothes, so it may not be accurate. So what exactly does a cuff do? Gretel started with physiology, thought about it from the beginning, and slowly organized his thoughts. The cuff measurement method is that when the air pressure in the cuff is higher than the systolic pressure, the blood cannot pass through the blood vessels and there is no fluctuation, so no sound can be heard. The cuff air pressure continues to decrease until it is lower than the systolic pressure, and the blood is forced through the blood vessels by the pressure of the contraction of the heart. The blood vessels are subject to this pressure and mechanical vibration occurs. We can hear the sound of this mechanical vibration through the stethoscope. The cuff air pressure continues to decrease, the resistance continues to decrease, the mechanical vibration weakens, and the mechanical vibration sound heard through the stethoscope gradually decreases. Until the cuff pressure is lower than the diastolic pressure and the resistance to the blood vessels drops to zero, then there will be no mechanical vibration in the blood vessels and the stethoscope will not be able to hear any sound. He stopped explaining and looked around at the two people around him. So the mercury barometer is different from the invasive sphygmomanometer. It actually measures the air pressure of the cuff, rather than directly measuring the blood vessel pressure. Norwood and Aurora spoke up at the same time. Gretel did not pause and continued to speak slowly. It's just that at a certain moment, when the cuff pressure equals the vascular pressure, a specific thing will happen. The measurer will take the value at this moment as the systolic/diastolic blood pressure reading, that's all. So, the key is the speed of deflation, Aurora thought slowly and said. Because the heart rate is about 60, 70, or 80 beats per minute, so the deflation speed is too fast and the air pressure reaches the bottom all of a sudden, nothing can be measured. Since this is the principle, then we can directly measure the pressure. Master Norwood suddenly jumped up. We have almost the same thing. As for the steam engine and the pressure cooker they built before, didn't they build a pressure gauge? Let's dismantle that magic and change it to the related blood pressure magic. Record its pressure waveform. Gretel's eyes also lit up. Maximum pressure and minimum pressure values. Change the display mode to millimeters of mercury. That's what we want. Isn't it just a matter of accuracy and time? This is not difficult. I will change it. Master Norwood was gearing up and almost wanted to run away. After thinking for a while, he turned around and asked. Boss, what else do you need? Connect a light screen? Like an electrocardiogram? Then connect it to an output device, such as one that can spit out paper tape. I remember doing related research when doing electrocardiogram magic. Gretel clapped his fingers. It's best to do both together. I need both. The one that lasts a day would be even better. No problem, boss. Master Norwood already had an idea and agreed. Greet turned to Aurora. Olo, do me a favor. You two each make a version. Mr. Norwood, you make the physical version. Whether it is engraved on magic crystal or whatever, in short, it will be activated. Usable. Olo, what you do with the magic version is to make a magic spell and hit it directly on the patient's arm. It's best to last for a period of time, preferably 1 hour per level. Please. No problem, boss. The two magicians answered at the same time. Then, turn around, run, check information, purchase the corresponding spell configuration, and start modifying the experiment. In less than a week, the magic blood pressure monitor that Gretel wanted was presented to him. "Boss, give it a try." Gretel took the belt from Master Norwood's hand and wrapped it around his upper arm. The chip is pressed into the center of the inner side of the upper arm, wrapped tightly in circles, and the magic crystal at the top is activated. A curtain of light unfolded in front of everyone's eyes. 155, 98, Master Norwood, your blood pressure is a bit high. Are you too tired during this period? This chapter thanks at book friend 20201936204251313103 teacher Shu for his technical guidance. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 666. The magic blood pressure monitor was successfully developed. Greed was overjoyed. Everyone learns this magic. Everyone learns it. From now on, those who learn this magic will have priority in entering the operating room. He gave the order in high spirits in the hospital. These spellcasters are all his tools, his human surveillance equipment. During future surgeries, you can see the patient's blood pressure as soon as you raise your head. You no longer have to worry about blood pressure soaring during the operation and the surgeon not knowing anything. Aurora was overjoyed. "Boss, my thesis has been written." The White Tower evaluated it with 100 contribution points and 50 research points. Moreover, in the name of Mage Tower and Oak Grove Medical Clinic, the medical branch said it might be rejected. Although the topic is small, it is still worth research points. You can take a step closer to the fourth ring arcanist. You can also use it to give accounts to the teacher. Master Norwood was also happy. "Boss, the patent for the magic sphygmomanometer has been registered. The Department of Change said that the purpose of this thing is unclear, so they can't give an advance payment, but they can be authorized to make and sell it, and share it with us. He will share half of all proceeds from this patent." Oops, the boss is so generous. Even Lin was very happy. Although he has nothing to do with this project, everyone else in the Mage Tower has gained something, and everyone is happy, and he feels sincerely happy when he sees it. Master Pagoda, everyone is one. Good to everyone, that's really good. Only Sirara was not happy. Miss Silverdragon slept on the Star Dome every day. She had not participated in the magic discussion in the Mage Tower for a while, and suddenly came to her senses. "Why didn't anyone tell me? I can play with force fields and stuff. How come I haven't heard anything about it, and you've already developed it? You didn't even take me to measure my blood pressure." Gretel turned his face silently. Since discovering that Master Norwood had high blood pressure, Gretel rolled up his sleeves and tested everyone in the wizard's tower. Others followed suit, and for a while, magic blood pressure monitors were flying everywhere in the Mage Tower. Master Norwood was the first to bear the brunt. He could be tested 20 times a day, and he only had to carry a 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor. The rest of the people are not much better, there is always something 8 times out of 10. Except Cyrilla. Gretel did not expect that Lin and others were somewhat in awe of her identity and never threw it away once. "Well, it's useless to test it for you. There is no standard value to compare with. Even if the data comes out, I don't know whether your blood pressure is high or low. Okay, I'll test it for you, I'll test it for you." Greet raised his hands up to the level of his head, making a surrender gesture. Seeing that Miss Yinlong's anger turned into joy, he concentrated slightly and threw a magic spell. Then, the faint magic light fell on Cyrilla, like a soap bubble, it dispersed and disappeared with a pop sound. "I'll do it again." "Cyrilla, don't resist." Greet shouted quickly before Miss Silverdragon's sky turned cloudy. He closed his eyes slightly, concentrated his mind, stirred up the magic configuration of the meditation world, condensed a new magic, and threw it at Cyrilla's left upper arm. There should be no problem this time, right? Bo. It exploded again. Damn it, the dragons, or the elves created by the dragons using transformation, have not yet measured the standard blood pressure value. We must first face the dragon's natural magic resistance problem. Why haven't I encountered this before? Is it because the subjects I tested before were all warriors or magicians below level 5, so their magic resistance was not that strong? Gretel silently added this topic to his long-term research list. The current main task is to appease Miss Yinlong. Specifically, let her play. Come on, let's try the physical version of the magic blood pressure monitor. Sarah, stretch out your arms and put them on the table dash. Wrap the belt, adjust the tightness, and activate the magic energy. Snapped. The magic crystal engraved with magic configuration and functioning as a pressure sensor cracked, cracked, cracked. Woo. Cloudy to overcast in Cyrilla. Pull off the belt, turn to the side of the induction crystal, look left, look right. The nails suddenly popped out, digging out the crystal from the brass frame, clicking, 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 and smashed it into pieces in one breath. Very angry. Useless things. Bully the silver dragon. Greed had no choice but to bring out the old version of the mercury sphygmomanometer. Thank God, although mechanical creations are troublesome to use, they are stable at least. Wrap the cuff, insert the stethoscope, inflate, deflate. Look, this is just measured. Don't worry about the numerical value. You are not a human being, so you definitely can't calculate it according to human standards. Cyrilla finally calmed down, still a little embarrassed. Greet reassured her again and again, promising that I will take you to play with any interesting discoveries I make in the future. The eldest lady turned gloomy. Seeing that the situation was not good, Greet quickly used another move. Cyrilla, speaking of you, have you made any interesting discoveries in the Star Dome these days? I'm not sure. Cyrilla shook her head, and the tips of her ears drooped feebly. This was the first time Gretel saw that the ears of a silver dragon that transformed into an elf could also be like an elf. Droopy. I can see strange lights, they have been adjusting the large magic circle on the dome. Let me tell them whether there is this kind of light, what its intensity is, and whether the intensity of this light is the same as that light. Then there is no more. When the magicians were adjusting the big magic circle, opening, closing, and rotating it, Sarah would fall asleep. After the adjustment was completed, Sarah would be woken up and a button would be stuffed under her paws. Then what did you see? Greet asked curiously. Cyrilla is troubled. I don't know either. They can't see it. They can only see it with the magic circle. It's very troublesome. After seeing it, I have to calculate a lot of things. It's dizzying and I don't know what they calculated. So, miss, you have been in the Star Dome for such a long time, are you still just a living astronomical telescope? Why don't you learn a little bit and don't have to write your name in the equipment column when it's time to publish a big paper? Greet was deeply worried about Cyrilla. After thinking about it, he decided to manually inspire Miss Silver Dragon. What kind of light is that? What characteristics does it have? For example, what can it pass through, what can't pass through it, and what is its wavelength? Can you use magic or other methods to emit this kind of light? Sarah can answer half of this question. We don't know the wavelength, so there's no need to expect Miss Silver Dragon to know it. Even if the magicians measure it and write it down in a book, there's no need to expect her to read it, but what about the other things? I seem to remember that it can pass through thin clothes, wood, and paper. Stones can't. At least a stone as thick as the wall of the Mage Tower can definitely block it. Well, lead sheet seems to be able to block it, as long as it is very thin. Lead skin. This description sounds familiar. Greet was searching for memories, and Cyrilla's eyes suddenly lit up. She turned her hands over and made several gestures. Look, look, she grabbed Gretel's hand and pulled it in front of her. It's so obvious. You can see every bone in your hand very clearly. For a moment, Gretel's hair stood on end. Cyrilla, you can play with anything, but don't rub your hands with X-rays. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Astrophysics is so difficult, I have to perform in the group every day to show off to my friends. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 667. X-ray. Hand bones, rays. The first thing that popped into Gretel's mind was that famous photo in the history of science. What jumped out next was a lot of messy information. Radiation, cancer, hematopoietic dysfunction, cataract, cardiovascular disease, imaging department, radiation leave, radiation allowance. Next to my ears, there was a clicking sound, as if the sound of a Geiger counter was ringing. Greet really wanted to escape from the room immediately, get himself a lead suit, and then take out a Geiger counter to test it. After trying to calm down for a few moments, I regained my train of thought. Don't be too nervous, it can penetrate wood and stone, but it will be blocked by lead, not just X-rays. X-rays are not the only thing that can see bones through the body. At least, the first application he developed when he just traveled through time, using detection magic to see bone structure, had similar properties. Greet took 2 deep breaths and tried to calm down. He tentatively asked Cyrilla, "Can you see the ray you created by using magic, detection magic for example?" "What?" Miss Yinlong opened her eyes wide in surprise. "Why do you need to use detection magic to see? I can see it directly." "Oh, okay, I'll try again." She raised her hand a second time. Gretel suddenly jumped away. "Don't point it at me." "No, don't point it at other people. Sarah, please remember, from now on, unless there is a special need, never point this ray at people." "Oh, okay," Cyrilla replied sadly, the tips of her ears tending to droop a little. She turned in one direction, making sure her palms were facing the wall, and turned to look at Gretel. "Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Greet opened his meditation horizon at the right time. The field of vision was empty, with no sign of anything lighting up. He looked at Cyrilla inquiringly, and Cyrilla also shook her head. "It's better to see clearly directly, using meditation vision, tisk." "Okay then, it seems that the ray created by Cyrilla and the magic feedback seen by detect magic are not the same thing at all. As for how to determine, is the ray created by Cyrilla the X-ray?" Mr. Norwood, Greet once again called the transformation mage in the mage tower, the omnipotent party B, the 5th level mage Mr. Norwood. "Do me a favor and get a high voltage vacuum tube." For artificial X-rays, Gretel specially set aside a room on the bottom floor of the mage tower, next to the morgue. Master Norwood was responsible for shaping the glass tube, installing a spiral-shaped fine gold wire on one end that seemed closest to tungsten in nature, and a fine gold sheet on the other end. As a magician of the plasticity department, Aurora was responsible for vacuuming the glass tube as much as possible, and then asked Master Norwood to seal the glass tube. Then, Master Norwood connected the adamantine wire to the wires in the wizard tower, making it hot and red. Aurora was eager to try and grab the wires connected to both ends of the vacuum tube. "Just discharge it, right? Just discharge it, right? Let me give it a try. Etc." Gretel raised his hand. The two invisible servants in the mage tower worked together to move a box of lead sheets. Master Norwood deployed his mental power and quickly shaped it, shielding the lead sheet between the vacuum tube and the crowd. Gretel was relieved. Okay. Would you like to try it? Aurora closed her eyes and concentrated. Lightning jumped from her fingertips and poured into the glass tube through the wires. At the same time, he turned his head to the right and looked at Cyrilla hopefully. Cyrilla revealed one eye from behind the lead sheet and stared at the vacuum tube. After looking at it for a while, he shook his head very firmly. I didn't see it at all. This. Gretel was wiping sweat on the edge. No matter how many times I have seen this research method of rubbing vacuum tubes by hand and manually discharging them, I still feel unaccustomed to it. But the vacuum tube discharge should be right. Every step is strictly in accordance with the description in medical physics. The vacuum tube heats the cathode to release hot electrons, and then applies high voltage direct current to the anode and cathode of the vacuum tube, causing the cathode's electron flow to hit the anode target, causing the target to emit X-rays. Is the vacuum tube not properly evacuated? Or is the high pressure not enough? Or maybe the cathode isn't burning hot enough to release enough hot electrons. Greet led everyone to repeatedly revise the experimental design. Increase the current, heat the cathode wire, and reheat it. Dark vision. The images seen became increasingly red, and finally, red could also be seen with the naked eye, and then snapped. The wire burned and the vacuum tube exploded. Well, it seems that the vacuum is not enough, otherwise it will not burn. Gretel asked Aurora to empty the vacuum tube a little more, and then empty it a little more. Snapped. The vacuum tube is broken. This, thicken the pipe wall, make the glass tube stronger, Mr. Norwood, please. Snapped. Pull it again and it will break again. Relying on the method of adding water when there is too much noodles, and adding noodles when there is too much water, Gretel finally got a glass tube that exhausted Aurora's mental power and could not be vacuumed anymore. Then, turn on the electricity and heat the fine gold wire until it can no longer be heated. Aurora, power on. Aurora Warden struggled to muster her mental strength. The fingertips of this evocation mage, who was already at level 6 and was striving to sprint towards level 7, had unprecedented brilliant lightning dancing on his fingertips. Even the brilliant blonde hair that had not been cut short for a long time exploded in the electric light. At a glance, it looks like a lion with fried hair, oh no, like a golden retriever. If Gretel had a camera and was in the mood, he would definitely take a picture of the scene in front of him. But he was not in the mood at all now. He just looked at Cyrilla expectantly, waiting for the eldest lady to give her answer. It seems there is a little bit, but not much. It's less than the bit illuminated by the star dome. If you don't pay attention, you really can't see it. Then what should we do? Gretel, is there any direction that needs improvement? In the basement, 2 magicians and a silver dragon stared at Gretel. Gretel scratched his head. So, is it still a problem with the voltage? The voltage needs to be a little higher. In my impression, the high voltage applied between the yin and yang poles of a medical X-ray machine seems to be tens to hundreds of kilovolts. I really can't help it, Aurora screamed. It can't get any higher. If it's any higher, his mental strength won't be able to hold it anymore. You don't need to. Gretel shook his head. To increase the voltage, there are 2 ideas. One is to get a transformer to increase the voltage from 220 volts to 220 kilovolts, the other is looking for the Lord of Thunder? Sin, that's the teacher, not the human flesh generator. Of course, the Lord of Thunder is in retreat and cannot be delayed for the time being. Greet changed his mind and went directly to human flesh generator number 2, the senior sister who studies electromagnetic direction, Archmage Philby. Senior sister, please help me. Cyrilla has discovered something strange, and we are trying to reproduce it, it is a strange ray in the sun, which may be related to the plasticity system. Since it is a ray in the sun, why don't you call me? When he turned around, Archmage Baebo stood behind him with a smile and his arms folded across his chest. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @RedSnowdens for the 500 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 668. The two archmages were dispatched together, and the effect was simply earth-shattering. Strictly speaking, it is even grander than the Lord of Thunder's trip. After all, the Lord of Thunder often opens a random portal when traveling. Step in, step out, and you'll be there in one quiet step. The two great masters, not only had to leave from the ground, but each also brought their own proud disciples with them. A bunch of them were getting on and off the train, occupying an entire carriage and filling Greet's basement to the brim. Except for Gretel and Miss Silver Dragon, everyone else was squeezed into a corner. Aurora and Master Norwood didn't dare to say anything. After all, in terms of identity, everyone is a disciple of the Lord of Thunder. In terms of level, the people brought by the two archmages are at the lowest level 9, and the highest level is even 13. The two of them, one is at level 5 and the other is at level 6, could not catch up with them even if they doubled their abilities. Is this what you are talking about? Archmage Philby took the lead and looked at the vacuum tube carefully, her eyes full of interest. How is this designed? How to use it? Greet didn't say anything, took a step back with a smile, and looked around. Only then did Archmage Philby notice the surrounding situation. His face darkened, and he reprimanded his disciple. What are you doing? You pushed the master into a corner. Sorry, this is, Mage Norwood. My students were a little too impatient after seeing the novel academic progress. I'm sorry. Although this mage of the transformation system is a follower of Gretel, he is not a fellow disciple after all, so he must apologize a little. As for the other one, he is the junior disciple, so just let him go as long as he wants to. She was smiling and talking, and Master Norwood couldn't express his displeasure. He bowed slightly, showed respect to the Archmage, and quickly stepped forward to shake the generator handle. At the same time, Aurora also squeezed out from the other direction and pinched two power supply wires. Surrounded by them, a group of high-level mages of level 9, level 10, level 12, and level 13 looked at the two little guys with envy. It's great to follow the right people. Two level 5 and 6 magicians can demonstrate projects for two archmages. If this topic selection is really valuable, these two people will not be able to write the second paper. Oh, by the way, the one they are following seems to be only level 6 at the moment. 1 2 3. Aurora and Master Norwood looked at each other and started moving together. The cathode metal wire glows red and heats up, the electric light flashes, the high-speed electron stream is ejected, and the machine hits the metal sheet on the opposite side. What flashed at the same time as the electric light was the surprised look of the two archmages. Archmage Baebo took a step forward and subconsciously exclaimed, "Oh!" Archmage Philby said nothing. However, the long skirt of this female high-level mage rose silently from the ground, swirling slightly, like a blue flower blooming. The edges of the flowers shone brightly, and there was clearly electric light looming. Did you see it? Archmage Baebo's voice was slightly tight. Next to her, the female archmage closed her eyes and spoke softly, as if she was talking in a dream. I saw electricity. This is what electricity looks like. Gretel was silent. What you old man saw couldn't be electronic flow, right? Although the flow of electrons in a vacuum tube is no better than the charge flowing in a wire, it is not that easy to sense. For high-level mages above level 15, the induction ability, or in other words, the perception attribute, is so high that it is really terrifying. He looked at Archmage Baebo again, guessing whether this gentleman had sensed X-rays. Archmage Philby suddenly stepped forward. Without any explanation, he grabbed 2 wires from Aurora's hands. There was no concentration or even any flash of lightning. The metal wire in the vacuum tube lit up again. Well. The 2 brothers and sisters groaned at the same time. The 2 looked at each other and said in unison, "I'll open the meditation environment first." "Let me open the meditation environment first." Gretel took a step back, then another step. The 2 archmages obviously felt that relying on perception alone was not enough to see clearly, so they needed to develop a meditation environment that could interact with reality to directly feel the changes in the vacuum tube. The problem is, don't do it at the same time. They unfold at the same time and collide with each other. The 2 of you just touch each other. Level 6 mages like us will die if we brush against each other. Fortunately, the 2 archmages finally reached an agreement. Probably because the wire was pinched in Junior Sister's hand, Archmage Baebo took a step back and made a gesture. Archmage Philby smiled slightly, her hair flying, and her eyes slightly closed. In her hand, the metal piece of the vacuum tube anode turned red and hot for a moment. Sarah stood next to Gretel and opened her eyes wide in surprise. "It's bright, it's bright. There are so many more rays than before." "Gretel, I'm not wearing radiation protection glasses." He quickly hid behind Sarah, using the tall figure of the Silver Dragon Girl to block the X-rays. After finally waiting for Archmage Philby to finish reading, he handed the vacuum tube to another Archmage. Archmage Baebo's movements were even more wild, and the meditation environment appeared vaguely outside the body, directly wrapping the person and the vacuum tube together. The others could only stand together in the room, watching the Archmage holding the vacuum tube for 1 second, 2 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Snapped. Stab dash. The first explosion was caused by the vacuum tube exploding directly, the second explosion was caused by a large ball of blazing white electric sparks, which almost filled all the space between the Archmage's hands and illuminated the entire room. Greet shrank her head reflexively and hid her entire body behind Cyrilla. The first explosion was either caused by too much voltage and insufficient electrode gap, which broke down the electrodes and damaged the tube, or the high-energy electron flow hit the anode metal sheet, generating high heat and burning the vacuum glass tube. The second explosion was caused by air entering the vacuum tube, causing the air to be ionized and a large spark appeared. Such a high voltage is transmitted to both sides. If it jumps on me, I will definitely die. "Ah, little Gretel, I'm sorry for breaking your things." Archmage Baebo turned around and said sorry, but his eyes were astonishingly bright. "How did you make this? I will pay you 10 times. 100 times. This ray is very important to me. Can you allow me to study this ray together? Add it to Yanjian explosion, my magic, the power will be increased by at least 10%. Master, senior brother, aren't you? Do you want to add X-rays to the sunburst? If gamma rays were discovered, would you also add gamma rays to the list? Or directly use gamma ray bursts on the battlefield? And I?" Archmage Philby took 1 step forward. Gretel turned to look at her, then at Archmage Baebo, who stood tall and muscular, and raised his hand cautiously. "Well, I'll write you the information and how to make a vacuum tube. You can study it yourself, senior sister. Remember to add a magnetic field outside the vacuum tube and try it. You may be surprised. Hand X-ray. Study X-rays. Don't take me. I have detection magic which is enough for the time being. Senior brother Baebo, please remember to find a prophecy mage to take a look. This kind of ray may not be a good thing and may harm the body. By the way, you can put something else in the vacuum tube and then turn on the electricity to see. Maybe there's a surprise. Don't worry. When the time comes, your name will be added to the paper. Be sure to add your name and theirs. The two archmages answered generously. Cyrilla snorted dissatisfied. And I? You. Which column did you add it to? Your contribution so far is that you have observed this kind of radiation with the naked eye, so are you considered an instrument? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 669. The two great masters returned home with a full load, and each went back to do research and write papers. To be cautious, Archmage Baebo did bring in a prophecy archmage and let him feel this kind of ray. Well, it is indeed harmful to the human body. The prophecy archmage unfolded the meditation environment that was about to be substantive. After taking the X-ray for a while, he nodded in affirmation. When researching, you must pay attention to using the corresponding protective magic, or wearing lead clothing or something. By the way, can I communicate the relevant information about this ray with the astrology department? Archmage Baebo thought for a moment and agreed generously. Of course, both parties must sign a magic contract to ensure that relevant content is given, and Thunderhorn has priority for publication, and, if any paper published by the Department of Prophecy mentions relevant content, the source must be indicated. Boss. Boss. Your name is on Arcane again. That night, as soon as Gretel returned to the Mage Tower, a volume of journals was photographed in front of him. Gretel raised his eyes and saw Aurora's face flushed with excitement, her hair shining golden. Look quickly. What catches your eyes? I have no shortage of top issues. I have just published the previous issue of Arcana. In this issue of Magic, my paper on painless childbirth has been promised. Gretel grumbled secretly and took the journal. What came into his eyes was a big headline, but Aurora translated it directly and sent it to him. There may be more than one sun in the starry sky. Abstract. By analyzing the components of sunlight and various rays in the starry sky, we can confirm the properties of various stars. Stardome has recently identified another type of ray in sunlight besides visible light, infrared ray and ultraviolet ray, and confirmed that the Moon, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and other planets cannot produce this kind of ray. However, in the Stardome's observations of other stars, it was found that many distant stars emit the same rays. Therefore, we speculate that in the starry sky above our heads, there may be more than one star with the same properties as the Sun. Gretel was stunned. The astrology branch has done something big. The Shining cult next door has always said that the Lord of Shining is the only God, and the Sun is the incarnation of the Lord of Shining and the embodiment of the divine power of the Lord of Shining. If you can really prove that other stars have the same properties as the Sun, it feels like the glorious God sect can jump up and use all its strength to kill the astrological branch. By the way, what Aurora just said is that I am playing Arcane again. Greet lowered his head and looked down again. The first author listed the following. Lady Ender, Legendary Mage, Prophecy Branch of Astrology. Amelia Owens, 17th Level Archmage, Astrology Branch of the Prophecy System. Florian Murray, Level 15 Archmage, Prophecy Detection Branch. Gretel Nordmark, 6th Level Magician, Lightning Branch of the Evocation System, Oak Grove Medical Clinic. Cyrilla Moonlight Flaysgrid, Lightning Branch of the Evocation Department, Oak Grove Medical Clinic. Asa Baebo, a 17th Level Archmage, the Thunder and Lightning Branch of the Energy Evocation System. Okay. It is indeed Arcane again, and his name is listed in the first author column together with Cyrilla. Moreover, he is still listed in front of senior brother Baebo. Perhaps it was because he created a vacuum tube by patting his head, and verified that X-rays are a new type of ray that humans can produce on their own. No matter what, it's always a good thing to have another first author on Arcane. Gretel glanced down again, and the names of Aurora and Master Norwood were also listed in the author column. Moreover, Mrs. Ender was very generous, giving both Aurora and Norwood the second author. No wonder Aurora is so excited, this is the second author of Arcane. It's from the department next door, not the plastic energy department's own research, so give them a second job. Greed happily put away the Arcane. He lowered his head and continued writing his thesis on the necessity of caesarean section in cases of cephalopelvic disproportion. Well, forget about this paper, Arcana and Magic, and it probably won't even get into the Ordinary Magician's Monthly. But he has already negotiated with MSX Laban from the Baby-Friendly Medical Center. This series of papers can be published in the medical research of the Conjuration Medical Branch in the future, and directly made into a series. The premise is that the contribution is guaranteed, 1 article per month. There is a lot of pressure to update. Greet immersed himself in treatment, writing papers, and collecting information for his blood test spell. I was so busy every day that I didn't know what day it was, until Aurora once again held the journal and rushed to him. Boss! Boss! Your name is in Arcane again. This time there are 2 articles. Research related to X-rays and electron flow is of great concern. The 2 archmages worked hard and spent a lot of time before completing the preliminary research and writing the paper. During this process, I also consulted the Lord of Thunder, who was in retreat. One of the results is that the Lord of Thunder's originally planned 1-month retreat time is far away, and he doesn't know how long he will have to work on it. The second result is that 2 papers that could have been written in half a month were not published in the previous issue of Arcana alongside Lady Ender of Eye of the Stars. It took me a full month to catch up with this issue of Arcane. Properties and magical damage of a new type of ray. First author. Asa Balba, a 17th level Archmage, the Thunder and Lightning branch of the Evocation system. Gretel Nordmark, 6th level Magician, Lightning branch of the Evocation system, Oak Grove Medical Clinic. The second author. Cyrilla Moonlight Flacegrid, Lightning branch of the Evocation department, Oak Grove Medical Clinic. Aurora Wharton, a 6th level Magician with the Lightning branch of the Evocation system. Christopher Norwood, a 5th level Magician, Alchemy branch of the Transmutation system. Discovery of a new type of particle far smaller than an atom. First author. Oriana Philby, a 16th level Archmage, the Lightning branch of the Evocation system. Gretel Nordmark, 6th level Magician, Lightning branch of the Evocation system, Oak Grove Medical Clinic. We're playing Arcane again. We're playing Arcane again. Aurora and Master Norwood looked at each other and high-fived in celebration. In just 2 months, there have been 3 second installments of Arcana in a row. The pinnacle of life. This qualification has already left mages of the same age group and spellcasting level far behind. Even level 8 and level 9 magicians can have 1 or 2 works a year, which is worth a trip around Nevis. Celebrate. Be sure to celebrate. Open the wine. Open the champagne. Make something delicious. You have to fly around the Mage Tower 3 times, no, 10 times. You are still in the mood to celebrate. In the midst of the ecstatic dance, Master Lin An walked over silently, rolled up Arcane and knocked on the table. Don't you have a sense of crisis at all? Especially you, Greet, haven't you noticed that among the first authors of these important papers, you are the lowest ranked? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. I don't even know the Bundists if I subscribe, crying. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 670. Sense of crisis. Gretel lifted his eyes from the paper and looked at Lin. The necromancer's eyes were blazing, almost like 2 will-o'-the-wisps, staring down at him. You don't know how many times you've slapped the glorious Holy See in the face with this paper of yours. You don't know how much they want to kill you. So far, how many groups of assassins have they sent to deal with you? Well. Gretel lowered his head silently. His eyes fell on the first page of the paper, and sure enough, except for him, there was no magician below level 10 when the paper was written. Even in the second game, except for Aurora and Mr. Norwood, they are all level 9, level 10, level 8, and level 9. Pick the persimmons that are soft and pinch them. If the Radiant Holy See wants to assassinate someone to vent their anger, or if they want to assassinate someone to slow down the research progress of the Council, who will they attack? The answer is simply obvious. Assassinating him, Gret Nordmark, is the most cost-effective option. Is the security work in Nevis doing well? He asked with a glimmer of hope. I commute to and from get off work every day. Oh no, I go to and from the medical clinic and the Mage Tower every day. I ride Appa through the wilderness. I shouldn't give anyone a chance to assassinate me, right? Should Sarah come back for a while? Or, if the Star Branch refuses to let Severa come back, can you ask them to help strengthen security? For example, borrow a defensive weapon, or ask them to help install a portal or something. Lynn looked at him helplessly. Gretel's spellcasting level has been rising rapidly, and his spellcasting ability does have some unique skills. But, in terms of actual combat level, Lin En believed that even when he was a 3rd level or 4th level mage, he could easily kill 10 or 8 unsuspecting guys like Gretel. You should try your best to stay in the Mage Tower during this period. If there are any important patients, just ask them to be sent to the Mage Tower. At this point, seeing Gretel's face turn bitter, he opened his mouth to refute, then sighed and changed his words. If you really can't do it, you should be more alert. Doesn't your quill come with a force field barrier and teleportation skills? Don't leave your body for a moment. Well, the one I brought with me. Where's the bracelet Mr. Almeida gave you? Wear it, or put it in your pocket. Don't worry, it's in Shen Laosai's space bag. It won't be triggered at the critical moment. Okay. Also, stay at home these days, don't run around, and stay as close to your teacher as possible. At least get to level 7 as soon as possible. He was nagging, and he really wanted to knock Greet on the head twice. Why is this kid so worrying? Greet looked up at him honestly, said something, nodded, said something again, and nodded again. After nodding, he looked sadly outside the Mage Tower and towards the distant east. Where are the people from the glorious Holy See? If you want to send assassins to kill me, send them quickly. After this fight, I should do whatever I need to do without delaying things. In the Glory Holy City, the Deputy Chief Judge of the Inquisition, His Excellency Lucerne, was once again scolded by the Chief Inquisitor in disgrace. This time, 2 books of arcane and 1 of magic were thrown together in front of him, almost slapping him in the face. Lucerne, where are your actions? Where are your reverence for my God? Where are your sincerity that you are willing to sacrifice for my God? Where have they gone? 3 top publications, 1 on painless childbirth and 1 on the sun may not be the only one. Every article pours a lot of dirty water on the glory of the Lord of Glory, but there is no way to refute it. The glorious Holy See has not yet imported equipment for painless delivery, so there is no way to verify it. However, the Inquisition has not done experiments before. After cutting off the spinal cord, you really can't feel the pain in the lower half of your body, including the lower part of your body. As for the article about solar rays, the Holy See does not have a large magic circle like the Star Dome, and it is even more impossible to verify the brilliance of the stars. However, even to separate yet another ray from sunlight would be a slap in the face in terms of doctrine. Didn't the Holy See say that there are only 7 colors of sunlight, representing the 7 powers of the Lord of Glory? Wasn't it the Holy See that modified the doctrine based on the findings of the Magic Council and added 2 other rays of light? Do you want to change it now? If we don't change it, what if the new ray is confirmed? If we change it, what if the Magic Council discovers a new type of ray? How is your elimination operation going? Who has been sent there? What information has been obtained? When is it estimated that the Nordmark mage can be killed? Lucerne frowned. It's not that he is slacking off in his work. In fact, in the past 2 years, there has been some chaos within the Holy See, and he can't help it at all. 3 years ago, a plague spread in the holy city of glory, and the Pope had no choice but to launch holy glory. After dragging on for more than a year, I was finally called by the Lord. The new Pope took office, and it took him nearly a year to straighten things out. Just when I wanted to do something, bang, the other side posted a paper on infrared and ultraviolet rays. Just this one paper brought down several archbishops and high-ranking priests in an instant, and everyone in the glorious holy city and out-of-town dioceses were on their feet. In order to seize the positions in the core of these holy cities and important dioceses in other places, the glory divine religion is undercurrent. This sudden chaos lasted for half a year, so much so that the Lucerne deputy referee could hardly adjust other systems except for the manpower of the referee. However, Lucerne still gained something during this time. Although this harvest may not necessarily make the chief referee happy. By the way, we have found out the whereabouts of Viper Arezzo from last time. How about it? I was caught by mistake. Not only were they caught, but they also implicated the Holy See in Nevis, and a group of them were wiped out. The people sent by Lucerne worked hard to find out the news, and then worked hard to get the news through. The deputy referee checked the people on his hands and found that there is nothing left to use. Every spy is valuable. It is very difficult for every assassin to break away from the support of local hidden stakes, seize the opportunity, and succeed with one strike. My subordinates feel that it may not be easy for us to carry out targeted killing operations in Nevis City, he reported respectfully. But my subordinates think that we can move the target away from Nevis. Go to other places, where our power is stronger, or at least the magicians are weaker. That way, it will be easier to attack. How do you want to transfer people? The chief referee frowned. The council is willing to release such a young and promising magician. It was not easy originally, but now I have an opportunity. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to Ed for the 1,500 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 671. The chief referee raised his somewhat cloudy eyes and glanced at the deputy referee of Lucerne slowly and without emotion. Lucerne felt goosebumps on the back of his neck, as if he had been licked by a sticky lizard tongue, leaving a wet and unpleasant feeling. The chief referee seemed to be very old, so old that he was a little confused. But Lucerne knew how strong and tricky this old man was. 5 years ago, during the war against the Kingdom of Kent, he single-handedly withstood the royal family's Flower of Thorns knights. The deputy leader Thunder Sword Master Count Melio and 3 of his men were killed, and he even killed 2 of them. 4 years ago, after the plague spread in the glorious holy city, he personally ordered the hanging of nearly 100 clergy, including 2 cardinals. Even last year, in support of the new pope's struggle to consolidate power, he sent 1 archbishop to the stake and sent another to a diocese adjacent to the Black Forest. As for the holy knights, there are still 3 great knights imprisoned in the dark prison. Lucerne knew that if he did not satisfy the old man, he might be the next one to go to the dark cell. Fortunately, he was prepared. Lucerne took a deep breath, leaned forward slightly, and pressed his fingers on the latest arcane. Isn't it recently reported that the false king of the Kingdom of Kent is pregnant with an heir? Because of the original sin, The process of pregnancy and childbirth for any woman is very dangerous. He rubbed his fingers hard on Arcane, crushing the evil magic book until the cover wrinkled. Squinting his eyes, he seemed to see the scene he was looking forward to a few months later. I think there is no woman who does not want to reduce the pain and risk of childbirth. Since this Nordmark mage is committed to obstetrics research, he has the intention to establish himself as an authority. We can try to make him an authority. The false king summons him to serve. The chief referee had been listening quietly, with his eyes lowered, as if he hadn't heard anything, and as if he had fallen asleep directly. Hearing Lucerne draw out the last word long and long, as if he had finished speaking and was very proud of this idea, he suddenly said, "Not enough." Lucerne shuddered. He quickly said, "Yes. Even if the Puppet King wants to summon him, the Magic Council may not agree immediately. In this case, a gap can be created between the Puppet King and the Council. Even if the Puppet King ascends the throne with the Magic Council's credit, she will not like a parliament that ignores its own dangers. Not enough." The chief referee still didn't even raise his eyelids and answered slowly, as if talking in his sleep. Lucerne immediately picked up. "That false god, the priests of the spring water goddess, have always had the power to take care of the false king. They will not be happy that their sphere of influence is challenged. There are many things that can be manipulated. Not enough. Although we have left the kingdom of Kent, the glory of our Lord still shines on many believers. In the court of the false king, more than one nobleman was forced to declare his conversion, but he still loves our Lord. These can be used. Not enough. That Nordmark mage, judging from his consistent behavior, he is very concerned about the safety and health of the poor. If it doesn't work, we can spread a plague in the royal capital after he arrives in the royal capital. If he participates in disaster relief, the false king must be very unhappy." The chief referee lowered his eyelids and stopped talking. Lucerne waited for a while and saw him hanging his head and breathing evenly, as if he had fallen asleep. Lucerne did not dare to say a word, quietly exited the room, and went to find his subordinates. "You go do these." 2,000 miles away in Nevis, Greed knew nothing about these conspiracies. He is still immersed in medical work, going to and from get off work every day, treating patients and delivering babies, organizing cases and publishing papers. By the way, I also want to comfort the mother and her family members. Ms. Anna, please don't go to the open space behind to practice martial arts. You are already 38 weeks pregnant. You may give birth at any time. In your current situation, light movement is enough. We don't want you to suddenly move during your martial arts practice. Fetal air. Ms. Cecilia, I hope you can exercise some restraint when meditating. Although we don't have data yet on whether the elemental disturbance during meditation will affect the fetus, it's better to be careful when it comes to the child. Miss Selina, please advise your friend. Pay more attention to her condition, fetal heart rate, etc. It is recommended to monitor it every day. Well, I don't believe that someone can lie on your belly every day, listen to the fetal heart rate with a stethoscope, and put his hand on your belly to monitor uterine contractions, and you can still enter a meditative state. Ah, why is that level 7 night's perception so sharp? Even when she was meditating next door, she would feel the disturbance of the elements affecting her, and she also complained to the hospital, saying that she felt uncomfortable. Someone come and put 24-hour electrocardiogram, blood oxygen monitoring, blood pressure monitoring, and fetal heart rate monitor on her back. Unfortunately, it's not possible. So far, these monitoring methods, except for blood pressure, all rely heavily on human power. In other words, a magician needs to stand next to the recipient and cast spells on the spot to monitor the mother's condition. In other words, 24-hour monitoring means that 3 magicians are needed to stay with the mother in 3 shifts. I'm sorry, but the hospital's manpower is not so abundant yet. Not to mention, For fetal heart rate monitoring, if you do not listen with a stethoscope but use electrocardiogram monitoring, currently only Greet can guide the electrocardiogram probe through B ultrasound and accurately throw it to the fetus through the uterine cavity. Exact location. Gretel was looking forward to the stars, the moon, just looking forward to the sun rising in the mountains. Oh no, just looking forward to the two ladies giving birth and leaving as soon as possible. However, on the day of delivery, there was another chaos. Bed 1 on the third floor is activated. The cervix is dilated to the second finger. The mother strongly demands a cesarean section. Send it down. Greet ordered without hesitation. For Ms. Cecilia, the two parties had agreed in advance to perform a cesarean section as soon as the labor started. Speaking of which, it's a long way from the royal capital, isn't it, just to experience it personally? The female skeleton soldier nurse carried one end of the stretcher, and Selena carried the other end of the stretcher, running down and entering the operating room. Greet applied spinal anesthesia, brushed her hands, put on clothes, and was just about to go on stage when the operating room suddenly opened a crack, and little Jenny poked her head in to report. It's time to give birth in bed 2 on the third floor. It's already started, and the umbilical cord is already visible under the body. Greet's vision went dark. Umbilical cord prolapse. This is very, very dangerous and needs to be dealt with immediately. Don't you two crowd together. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of